All right, hello, welcome back to Unqualified Analysis, preview edition of Unqualified Analysis. Got you some college football, got you the NFL divisional round, historically best round of the entire playoff, so we're going to drink it in, obviously. Do have to get to a little bit of a Monday night debacling. That happened with your boy. I have some thoughts. Let's just say I have some thoughts on that one. And going to hit some headlines up top, maybe get you some picks. We'll see how I feel. I did not look at this board at all. You know, my enthusiasm for gambling has waned since I stopped winning so much. I'll tell you what. We're gonna get him next year. Okay, we're gonna get him next year. I'll get a little bit back during the NBA season, I'm sure, and then we're gonna come full speed ahead. Full speed ahead 2025, man. This is going to be our year. It's going to be a banner year for your boy and you out there listening to this. However, all that said, it is about 7:40 at night. At this rate, I'm going to be eating dinner past 9. And then just going straight to bed pretty much. So in the interest of time, let's get this thing going here. So first and foremost, let's just rip the Band-Aid off. On Monday night, the Vikings went on the road to Glendale, Arizona, actually, because LA is on fire at the moment. And they got just annihilated by the Rams. Never was close. It was 24-3 at halftime, I'm pretty sure. Rams only scored 3 points in the second half. Hey, nice little moral victory. Little golf clap. The Vikings outscored the Rams in garbage time, so that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool, but Rams ended up winning this thing 27-9. Never felt close at any point in this game. The Vikings looked overmatched. You know, I can't even say that, but before I get into anything Vikings related, let's just let's talk about the Rams here. That front seven is legit. They're all incredibly young. They're the cheapest defense in the National Football League because they're all on rookie deals pretty much, or short little 1 years for a lot of the backups. It's a really good, really young unit with a really solid young defensive coordinator there, Nick Shula. I remember now who Nick Shula coaches for sure. So hey. The game plan was laid out by Detroit. They executed it to perfection. They got 9 sacks on Sam Darnold. Didn't even necessarily get to him quickly. They just made him hold the ball pretty much. They just held up for a second on the back end and then let their defensive line do some work. And that's exactly what they did. Vikings offensive line looked outmatched in this one. You saw Jared Verse go and scoop and score for a touchdown. And that's pretty much all she wrote at that point. So the Rams are a scary team. And this is why I was afraid of them coming into this, because we've been talking about this for like the last month or two of the season. They're getting healthy at the right time. They were decimated by injuries in the early part of the season. But what do? They survive. They keep it, right around the Mendoza line to keep things, in playoff contention, and they get healthy. They win enough games to win the division, and now they're off to the races at this point. They're in the divisional round, facing off against the Philadelphia Eagles, I believe. I believe it's the Philadelphia Eagles at this point. Yeah, it's the Philadelphia Eagles because the Lions are playing the Commies. Either way, they're into the second round. There's a good chance they get waxed in this second round. We'll talk about that here in just a second, but they got as much of a puncher's chance as anyone. They've got a vibe that is very reminiscent of those Eli Manning Giants teams that went on runs. The 1 year Aaron Rodgers won the Super Bowl. It's got a little bit of that feel where maybe they didn't get quite as hot down the stretch as some of those teams, but they're getting their best football at the right time. Puka Nacua is playing out of his mind, which is kind of covering up the fact that Cooper Kupp is maybe not quite the player that he once was. Kyron Williams is great, and he's running behind and improving offensive line with every week. They got healthy at the end of the season, and they are playing really, really good right now. They just kind of road graded the Vikings at points in this game. They're a scary team. They're a team that I do not want to face up against, especially with Jalen Hurts kind of dealing with nicks and bumps and bruises and all that sort of stuff. So he's I guess, he's good, not great. Will that matter? I don't know. I do think as far as passers are concerned, pound for pound, Matthew Stafford's got the advantage there over Jalen Hurts for sure. I think we saw a little bit of what we saw from Jalen Hurts in seasons past, particularly in that explosive 2022 season, was a bit of a product of Shane Steichen to a certain extent, which is just equally sad to see on the other end of the spectrum, with what has happened with the Colts. Unfortunate there for sure. But Matthew Stafford is a quarterback that gives you a puncher's chance in every game. And when you got a defensive line that is young and improving every single week like the Rams are, with a nice young defensive coordinator, they're a scary team. They're a scary team. They are someone that could go all the way to the Super Bowl. And I would be shocked, but also could have kind of seen this coming. They're moving in that direction, which I'm not sure if you all are aware. I'm maybe you listen to the most popular sports podcast on all platforms. I don't know, but pardon my take, Big Cat. If the Rams win the Super Bowl, he's got to cut off part of his pinky. So stay tuned, folks. Stay tuned. That could be good times. That could be real good times for the spectators. Man, that's some of those bets. Some of those bets, man. Someone's talking about chopping their ding-dong off if Notre Dame wins a national championship. Why do people keep making these bets? Why do people keep making these bets? And I know the Big Cat one, that's a yearly thing. He goes through 2 weeks, and then after 2 weeks, he picks a team that's kind of in contention, but he feels has no chance of winning the Super Bowl. And he says, if this team wins the Super Bowl, I will cut off my pinky. That's the pinky bet right there. So that's a yearly tradition. These other ones here, why would you even make a bet that you're going to cut off your dick if Notre Dame wins? I mean, man, that's a level of fandom that I will never get to. And I'm a guy that painted up his chest in the front row at Mississippi State of all places. So, yeah, man, some people are just on another level. Shout out. Respect to them. Respect to them for sure. Let's get to the Vikings of it all, though. I gave the Rams ample flowers in that one. I think, hey, they got a puncher's chance. That's the best thing I could say about them. The Vikings, though, let's do a little postmortem on them. So 14-3, losing the first round of the playoffs. The final 9 days, or the last 9 days of the Viking season, with the loss to the Lions and then the loss to the Rams. You want to talk about night and day. You would have talked to me 2 weeks ago, I would have thought that we got a chance of winning the Super Bowl if our cards go right here, or we play the right cards, whatever the hell I'm trying to say. If we get dealt the right hand, I don't know, some sort of card metaphor. 2 weeks later, and boy, oh boy, do I feel exactly the opposite. I mean, we're eliminated from the playoffs. Sam Darnold, that's a whole issue in and of itself, but he's on a 1-year deal, so we'll talk about that here in just a second. This team, and I'm about to lead into Sam Darnold here, you just give me a minute here, but this team, from top to bottom, was good enough to make a deep playoff run. Just flat out. I mean, the defense with Brian Flores was playing, they were giving up a lot of yards in the passing game, but they were playing well, bowing up when they needed to in the red area. Obviously got exposed a little bit by Sean McVay, but that'll happen. That'll happen. The offensive line, bit of a weak spot, but at the very worst, they're an average offensive line. They're solid, if nothing else, an area that I think we need to invest in the offseason. Receivers, I don't really need to even say anything. 3 deep, as good as any in the entire NFL, between Jefferson, Addison, and Naylor's really emerged. Jalen Naylor has emerged as a really solid player in this 2024 season. And then, of course, you got TJ Hawkinson working the short to intermediate there. Unstoppable in the receiver pool. And then we got Aaron Jones toting the rock behind the offensive line there, who's been efficient all throughout the season and fits into Kevin O'Connell's offense perfectly. The one thing that ultimately held the Vikings back from making any damage late in the season, postseason, was Sam Darnold. Flat out. There's no sugarcoating it at this point. We saw in the Lions game, Aaron Glenn laid out the blueprint. You get pressure on him, and he turns into a pumpkin. And then, lo and behold, Nick Shula took that blueprint just right on top of his defense, and what do you know? 9 sacks. Sam Darnold is holding the ball for entirely too long, taking ill-advised sacks. A lot of those sacks were on Sam Darnold. He looked like he was seeing ghosts out there. That's the best way to put it. He was seeing ghosts. He wasn't throwing the ball as much, but he was seeing ghosts out there. And you just saw over the last 2 games that Sam Darnold is still mostly what he was before. I'm not going to sit here and say that he hasn't improved over the course of the last couple of years, because obviously he has. If he gets into the right system, he'll be rock solid for you. The problem is he still has those same old deficiencies that he's had from day one in the NFL, and at this point it just is who he is. And Kevin O'Connell can scheme around that all he wants. He schemed guys wide open this year, and when he got wide open guys and the decision is easy, Sam Darnold can huck the pigskin with the best of them. He is a electric thrower of the football if he can get a clean pocket and if he has, clear-cut decisions to make. Really, if he just has a clean pocket, he can kind of just rip it in there into windows. You get an ounce of pressure on him, and he just doesn't read the defense. He panics. He tries to scramble when he should try to evade pressure and still look downfield to throw the ball. He's just not a disciplined player when the pressure gets hot. And that's just not something that'll change, and that's not something that you invest big money over a long-term contract for. If nothing else, the people that were saying that Sam Darnold should get signed to a long-term deal, I think they have quieted down quite substantially. So that's good. I can't remember if I've come out in that camp or not. I was kind of on the fence, I suppose. Definitely leaning towards like a franchise tag situation, more so than a long-term deal. But any sort of thought that Sam Darnold was going to get a long-term deal, that's out the window at this point. That's fantasy land. That's no longer happening. Maybe Sam Darnold gets it elsewhere. It's not happening with the Minnesota Vikings, especially after drafting J.J. McCarthy and him sitting on the pine all year, just kind of watching how the offense is supposed to be run. And if nothing else, Sam Darnold did that beautifully. He had a great season, Pro Bowl season, just didn't quite have a great end to it. And there's something that J.J. McCarthy can learn from that. Amor fati, as J.J. McCarthy said. I don't really know what that means. I'm too lazy to look up the Latin translation there. I know amor is probably love. Love the pain, love the process. I don't know. I don't know, man. But yeah, amor fati. That's my weird ass starting quarterback next year, I would say, because Sam Darnold, maybe you consider doing the franchise tag still, but I get it. The Vikings, on paper, they have $70 million in cap space going into 2025, which sounds like a lot until you consider that a lot of key pieces are up for contract. I'm talking Cam Bynum on the back end, Harrison Smith's a year-to-year proposition. That's two starting safeties right there. One young guy coming off a rookie deal that deserves to be paid, and Cam Bynum should be paid a healthy amount to stay in Minnesota as far as I'm concerned. Outside of that, though, you look at what they got coming up. I mean, Stephon Gilmore, Shaq Griffin, you still got Andrew Van Ginkel for another year, but Byron Murphy, that's three corners right there that are up for contract. At least two of those guys I think should get paid to stick around for 2025. Maybe you rotate out either Shaq Griffin or Stephon Gilmore. Take your pick of which one, I suppose. Mekhi Blackmon is coming back next year, so you hope that the ACL hasn't taken away any athleticism from him, because he was playing well. He was a really good contributor down the back end of his rookie year, and there were good reports coming out of camp before he unfortunately injured himself. But yeah, I mean, you're going to have to probably pay two of those guys. You got some defensive linemen coming up contract-wise. Aaron Jones is coming up contract-wise. I'd like to see him get a long-term deal, or at the very least like a 2-3 year sort of deal that keeps him in Minnesota for the foreseeable future. There's a lot of holes that need to be filled, and I just don't know that you have the cap space to make all of those signings and then turn around and franchise tag Sam Darnold for, what would it be, $40 million? 41, 42 million at that point. It's just not a sustainable sort of thing. You don't have enough cap space left at that point to sign all the players that you need to sign. So I just have a hard time seeing Sam Darnold stick around with the Minnesota Vikings, even on a franchise tag situation. It's just not a tenable situation if you want to build a team around J.J. McCarthy. And that's all those re-signings are, before you even talk about, there are holes that need to be filled on this team. Interior of the offensive line, I'm fucking tired of that. It's been a problem my entire life, not even just adult life, like I was about to say there. My entire life, the Vikings have never had a good interior offensive line. Never. Not once in my memory have they had a good interior offensive line that could get a push at the point of attack and get you tough yards when you needed them to. Had incredible running backs in Adrian Peterson, Dalvin Cook, but never that elite interior offensive line, and I'm tired of it. We got to spend some money on the interior of the offensive line this year. We got to shore that up right now. Get a really good center. Sign another guard, maybe sign another guard as well. Maybe you do a full overhaul in the interior offensive line. That would be perfectly fine with me. You also need some depth at cornerback, for sure. Cam Akers is up on contract as well, so maybe you bring him back on another one-year deal to shore up the backfield, assuming that you sign Aaron Jones, which there seems to be mutual interest there. At least I'm assuming. Aaron Jones has expressed interest. I don't know. The Vikings are always cagey on these sorts of things, but I would imagine there's some talking happen behind the scenes right now, although, I mean, it doesn't really need to be that secretive. I mean, he's still under contract for right now, so there is that, I suppose. But there's just too many holes to fill in free agency for you to pay Sam Darnold to come back. Especially by the start of the regular season, J.J. McCarthy should be good to go. If he's not, I'm going to be incredibly alarmed. Make no mistake about it. I'm going to be really alarmed if J.J. McCarthy has any sort of really hang-ups in the offseason overall. I mean, by minicamp, he should be right back out there. He should be getting the starters reps, and he should be getting used to that role. If he's not, I'm going to be very worried, but I expect that to happen. And you just got to build a team around this kid. I trust Kevin O'Connell to put J.J. McCarthy in the best possible situation to develop him and mold him as he sees fit for a quarterback. And I have no question in my mind that whatever is in the tank for J.J. McCarthy, whatever sort of potential that J.J. McCarthy has, Kevin O'Connell's going to bring every single ounce of it out of him. I just don't know what that potential is, but I know whatever it is, Kevin O'Connell's going to get the best out of him because he's done it for literally every quarterback that he's ever had with the Minnesota Vikings. And with that proposition, with the advantage that you have, with that being the case, being that your head coach can get the best out of any quarterback that you put in there, be it Nick Mullins, Josh Dobbs, or in this case, J.J. McCarthy, I just don't think it's wise to spend that sort of money on a quarterback that has shown that he can crumble in big-time situations, and there is a playbook to mitigate what he does well out there, freely available for the world to see. I don't see investing money in that to be a good idea. The Vikings are not far off. This hurts a lot, make no mistake about it. Tuesday was a rough day. I'm trying to be a little bit less of a dour son of a bitch, but boys and girls, I was a dour son of a bitch on Tuesday. It was a dark day. It was a dark day to say the least. Here on Wednesday, it still hurts, but there is light. We're not far off. Got cap space to sign everyone we need to re-sign, and then go out and get a few more players to bolster what we've got. If J.J. McCarthy and Kevin O'Connell can hold up their end of the bargain, and assuming that Brian Flores doesn't get poached away from us in this coaching cycle, which still a lot of open jobs, so we'll see what happens there. I feel comfortable with our chances of running it right back in 2025 with maybe even an even better overall roster than what we had in 2024. So there is optimism, but this stinks. This stings a whole lot. So with that said, let's discuss a few headlines. So I think I talked about it the other day, but the Dallas Cowboys moved on from Mike McCarthy. Maybe I didn't talk about this, so we'll touch on it here briefly. Hey, good thing that Jerry Jones didn't allow Mike McCarthy to go out there and interview for a head coaching job when he knew full well that he was going to get rid of Mike McCarthy just days later, pretty much. Pretty good. That's a good thing. Probably gave the Cowboys a good competitive advantage. One of the bigger scumbag moves that I've seen from an owner, general manager in recent memory. I'm sure it's happened in times in my adult life, and I just don't remember it off the top of my head. But right now, I'm drawing a blank on how many of these that I've seen. I can't remember the last one that I've seen where the owner and GM in this case, blocks a guy that he knows full well he's not keeping around from going out and getting head coaching interviews elsewhere. It's a fucking scumbag move. No two ways about it. There's no other way to slice it. It's a scumbag move. And I don't know if Mike McCarthy's going to get a job in this cycle. I don't think he will. But to not give him the opportunity to go out there and at least interview, give him a better chance of getting a job, it's a fucking scumbag move from Jerry Jones. It's a real fucking slimy move. And I've heard some things about how they're operating down there. And look, man, if you're not ready to invest in a coaching staff that has the ability to win in the playoffs, you might get there, but you're never going to go anywhere meaningful when you do get there. That's the bottom line. And the more I'm hearing about this, let me just give you the skinny. I'm hearing that the Cowboys aren't necessarily the biggest spenders when it comes to their coaching staff. Mike McCarthy actually had to slim down his coaching staff this past season because they felt that they were spending too much money on it. And Jerry Jones, you got to look at it in this context. Football is not the big earner for the Jones family. Oil and natural gas, that's the big earner for the Jerry Jones family. Football is just something that, okay, it's a cash cow if you follow the meaning. And most people, they say the term cash cow, and they don't necessarily know the true definition of it. So let me just kind of lay it out for you like this. A cash cow is something, it's a business that you don't have to put a whole lot of money into, and it makes you a shit ton of money. That's the bottom line. Football and a football team, and this is why there's cheap-ass owners that suck in the NFL, because owners, especially in a big-time market like Washington for a period there with Dan Snyder, they found out that if you just don't spend a whole lot of money, fans are still going to show up. People are still going to watch on TV because they're so ingrained. It's a fairly elastic demand curve. Had to think there for a second. You pull the rubber band upward, and it snaps back down. Yeah, that's elastic when it's a flat demand line. And what that means here, an elastic demand line. What that means is that changing of the price or changing of the quality, we're getting a little bit theoretical here. I'm kind of going off the beaten path as far as the economics are concerned. But the changing of different aspects for the negative, we'll just say. So whether it's money spent on the roster, price of tickets, price of concessions, all that sort of stuff. What if a flat demand curve line like that means that you can raise the price or invest less in it, and you'll still make good money off of that. You'll still make more money after a certain point off of that. It has a point of diminishing returns, obviously, but just trust me on this, man. It's a fairly elastic demand curve. Not a whole lot of change going on, no matter what you invest in. And Jerry Jones, seeing that, being a smart businessman, more so than a smart GM, though give him his flowers, he's identified some good players here in the past. He knows he doesn't have to spend a whole lot of money, both in the player salaries and the coaching staff, and he's still going to make a shit ton because not only does he own an NFL franchise, he owns the fucking Dallas Cowboys, and he is maybe the best marketer in sports history. I don't think that's an exaggeration to say. At the very worst, he's in the Mount Rushmore of marketers in sports history with where he has brought the Dallas Cowboys over his tenure as an owner. He's much more of a marketer and a businessman than he is a football guy, though, and as such, he's not been serious about winning like he likes to purport out there. He may even think that he's serious about winning, but until he invests big time in a way that will hurt his bottom line overall. Make no mistake about it. He will make less money if he spends the type of money that it's going to take to build a championship franchise. Unless that happens, the Cowboys are going to be right here for the next 30 years. We'll see if Stephen Jones takes a different tact whenever he inevitably takes over the whole operation. I'm sure that'll happen here at some point in the next several years or so. Jerry Jones might be one of those guys that lives to like 100, though. He might be a Jimmy Carter type. So we'll see. We might have another 15 years of Jerry Jones running the whole operation here. I don't know. 100-year-old Jerry Jones, still the GM, does sound hilarious to me. So I kind of do want to see that, but in the foreseeable future, we'll get some ownership change. Generational ownership change, not generally worked out too well. Jim Irsay was better than his father, but the bar was so low, all he had to be was not a complete scumbag. Don't even need to be a good owner. Don't even need to make rational decisions necessarily. Just don't be a complete fucking scumbag, and you're already an upgrade over Jim Irsay's father, so that doesn't really count. The Maras most prominently in my mind are a big one there. The Browns, not the Cleveland Browns. I'm talking the Browns that own the Cincinnati Bengals. That's a big one there. You don't see a whole lot of success generation over generation there. I'm delineating though. The bottom line here is there's talks that maybe Deion Sanders comes over. I'm telling you flat out, Jerry Jones isn't willing to pay what it's going to take to get Deion Sanders out there. And maybe here like 85, 86, whatever Jerry Jones is right now, he sees the light at the end of the tunnel and just says, I want to win one more, and just forks over a bag and changes his whole philosophy this offseason. I don't see that happening, though, and as such, I don't see them forking over the amount of cash that's going to take for Deion Sanders to jump to the NFL. He just got it too good at Colorado right now. If anything, if the Florida State job comes open, that's probably where he's going to jump to. I think he wants to have an NFL job, but ultimately, I don't think Jerry Jones is the guy that's going to convince him to do it. And Jerry Jones is a great salesman, don't get me wrong, but it's going to take cold hard cash. Hey, Deion Sanders is a businessman too, and he's a hell of a marketer in his own right. He's not going to take $1 less than what he is owed, and that's a problem for Jerry Jones because I think they're going to be very far apart on that contract. So that's not going to happen in all likelihood. The Cowboys are just going to be right where they've been this whole time, and I don't see it changing anytime soon. I really don't. Outside of that, is there anything else? Carson Beck went to Miami. I think we discussed that last time. Trying to think, racking my brain right now. I don't think there's anything. Obviously, Mike Vrabel got the job with the New England Patriots, so that's pretty cool. Coming home. I'm coming home. Bitch, tell the world I'm coming home. Okay, we're like 27 minutes into this thing, so we're just gonna cut the headline short. Get a quick swig of this red Gatorade. Funny enough, my least favorite kind of Gatorade. But I still love it. I tell you what. Just because it's my least favorite doesn't mean it's not still good. Okay, so with that said, let's hop straight into the preview mode here. Starting off with Ohio State at Notre Dame. Not really at Notre Dame. They're down in New Orleans for the national championship. Well, I don't know where the national championship is actually this year. I probably should, but I don't. So that's maybe a little bit of a problem for someone running a football podcast, but I digress. We got Ohio State versus Notre Dame. Ohio State, an 8-point favorite over at Caesars, and I believe, I just got to check here if this mouse pad will cooperate. So we got, even money, even juice, minus 110 over at ESPN Bet and Caesars Sportsbook. They got a -8 for you in favor of Ohio State, 8.5. Everywhere else, pretty much. Everywhere else. And I think that line's pretty accurate. I think Ohio State has a big advantage in a lot of categories. I think their defense vastly overmatches the Notre Dame offense. I think the Ohio State defense is going to win big on that front. And I think the Ohio State offense, especially without having Riley Mills there in the middle, it's such a huge, huge loss. And they've lost other guys on that side of the ball as well, too. I don't know if they got the horses to hold back TreVeyon Henderson and Quinshon Judkins in this game. So that's all to say. The odds are stacked against Notre Dame. There's no other way to slice it on that. What it's going to take for them to win, though, is luckily exactly what's been happening all playoffs and really every time they faced a good team. Excuse me. They've basically just gotten they've won the special teams battle, they won the defensive battle, and they've won the middle eight. The last 4 minutes of the first half and the first 4 minutes of the second half. They've won substantially in that category, 27-0 in that time frame during the playoffs, and that's a big reason why they've won. Especially when you talk about that Georgia game, it's hard to understate how big that middle eight was for them in the Georgia game specifically. So yeah, they got to win there. They got to force Will Howard into some turnovers. You got to force him into a couple interceptions, I think. I think not just interceptions that either go for scores or they take points off the board. Like they're in field goal range at the very worst. They're like on the goal line or something, and you pick that ball off. That's taking points off the board right there. And they're going to need a good couple of those. 2, maybe even 3 of those to really make this a fighting chance for them. And then offensively, they cannot make mistakes. Riley Leonard cannot turn the ball over. Love can't turn the ball over. No one on that offense can make a mistake if Notre Dame wants to win this game. And in special teams, they've got to win the special teams battle definitively. They don't necessarily got to score a touchdown, but they got to be dynamite in the return game, dynamite in the coverage game. They have to win at the little things if they want a chance of winning this game. Even with all of that said, though, Texas did that and they lost by 2 touchdowns. So I'm taking Ohio State in this game. I don't know if I feel strong enough to bet them publicly. After that's 8 points is a big line. That's a big line, especially with a high quality team like Notre Dame that's got, a trio when you're talking about the head coach, offensive coordinator, and defensive coordinator, maybe the best trio of coaches in the entire country. If you're talking about like a single staff. Very impressive there. So that kind of scares me. Maybe I'll bet this with my own money. Feels more likely than not, but I'm just abstaining from it for now. So that's the national championship preview. I am heavily leaning towards Ohio State. I do think even if they don't cover, I think they win the national championship. They beat Notre Dame in this one. So there's my pick on that one. Out of curiosity, what's the total on this? 46.5. I think they got that pegged pretty accurately. If Notre Dame plays their style of game, that's probably going to go under. If Ohio State plays their style of game, still might go under. The lean is to the under, no matter what, at 46.5, but I'll probably stay away from it. So with that said, let's bebop our way over into the NFL to talk about the divisional round, shall we? So we have got the Houston Texans at the Kansas City Chiefs to kick us off on Saturday. It's a tradition. Unlike any other, the Texans, no matter what the weekend of the playoffs, they are always the first game on the docket. You can set your watch to it. You can set your calendars to it. If the Texans are in the playoffs, they're going to be the very first game on Saturday to kick things off, no matter what the round happens to be. And that's a beautiful thing. Consistency is a beautiful thing. Unfortunately, Texans are pretty heavy underdogs here. So the Chiefs are 8.5-point favorites pretty much across the board. You can get some favorable juice over at DraftKings right now. They got a -105 for you. Everywhere else is even juice, -110. That line is pretty steady right there. So the main place that I see the Chiefs winning in this game is Chris Jones and that Chiefs defensive line, George Karlaftis and co. as well. I think they're going to manhandle the Texans offensive line, especially on the interior. I don't think there's anyone that can hold up to what the Chiefs are bringing. I think Chris Jones is in for a big day in this one, and as such, C.J. Stroud's going to have to play out of his mind, that's for sure. Nico Collins is going to have himself one of those days like he just had last week, where they blew out the Chargers. He's going to have another one of those big-time days, and C.J. Stroud is going to have to play out of his mind in order to get that to him as well. That's what you're up against for the Chiefs, or for the Texans. I don't think the running game is going to do very well for the Texans. They have shown a trend of when they face really solid defensive fronts, the running game just kind of wilts. We're talking like sub 3 yards a carry, sort of average here for Joe Mixon in those sorts of games. So I think it's going to fall on the shoulders of C.J. Stroud and Nico Collins, the rest of that receiving core, to come up with some offense, generate some points for the Houston Texans. You look on the other side. The Texans, if they can make this a rock fight, there's a possibility here. I mean, Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson are as good of a 1-2 punch of pass rushers in the entire NFL. Will Anderson's just had a breakout season this year. He's a monster, absolute monster. I think multiple sacks last week. He's been on a tear down the stretch of the season. The defense has been a real bright spot, which is what you love to see when you hire a defensive coach like D'Amico Ryans. It's paying dividends for sure. I think Derek Stingley can match up with whoever the Chiefs' number one wide receiver is nowadays. Is it Hollywood Brown? Is it DeAndre Hopkins? Who knows? Does it matter when your quarterback is Patrick Mahomes during the regular season? It does. I don't know in the postseason. That being said, the Texans' defense can match up with the Chiefs. Now, there's a good chance we see playoff Mahomes, and that's just something you never want to see when you're on the opposing sidelines. And there's nothing you can do about that if that does indeed happen. But if you just look on paper, the Texans match up pretty well. I think they got a little bit of an advantage on the edges for the defensive line with Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter rushing off the edge there. I think, interior work in progress. That's going to be a little bit of an issue for sure. But secondary-wise, they match up. Hey, they could make this a rock fight with the Chiefs, and I think they're going to have to because I think that the Texans' offense is going to struggle to score in this game. Let's kind of look at the over-under here. So it's a 41.5, so Vegas is seeing what I'm seeing here a little bit, to where this is going to be a little bit of low-scoring game, especially when you factor in you're in Kansas City. If Missouri is going to be anything like Ohio this weekend, it's going to be cold as hell. 1L. Not 2 L's, we're talking 1L. We're talking the Norse hell, the cold one. It's probably going to be frigid there if it's anything like Ohio right now. So run game is going to be huge. That's what it's ultimately going to come down to. And the bottom line here is defensively, I think they're going to manhandle the Texans' offensive line. And offensively, I think it's just going to come down between these teams. The Chiefs are going to have a better running game, and they have the better quarterback just by default. And the receiving core is not that much worse than the Texans. They don't have a Nico Collins for sure, and if Patrick Mahomes did, I think the offense would be a whole lot of a different story here. Unfortunately, Xavier Worthy has not been that. I don't think anyone's truly expecting him to be that, frankly. But I digress on that front. I just think they have enough to get past the Texans. I don't know if they cover that 8.5. The Chiefs have been one of the worst spread teams in the entire NFL this year. Things change in the playoffs with Patrick Mahomes for sure. But I lean the Chiefs to win, probably lean the Texans to cover just by virtue of the fact that this is going to be a low-scoring game in my mind. And if it's not, I think it's only going to be high-scoring for one team, and that's the Chiefs. I don't see the Texans putting up 25-30 on this Chiefs defense. I think if anyone's scoring 30, it's going to be the Kansas City Chiefs in my mind. So I guess lean the Texans on the spread. I think the Chiefs win this game ultimately and punch their ticket to another AFC Championship game for Patrick Mahomes. Okay, so we're moving on to the NFC for the second Saturday game, the 8 o'clock slot we have got going on here. The Commanders are on the road at the Lions in a hostile road environment. Lions are big favorites, -9.5. The over-under is hilarious. It's 55.5. I feel like I have to bet the under on principle, but also the Lions have the potential to hit that number all by themselves. I don't know on that one. There's a reason this line is at 9.5, though. Defensively, it is what it is. The Commanders may ultimately get some points, especially with Jaden Daniels playing the way that he's been playing. I don't discount the Aaron Glenn effect, though. He's as good a defensive coordinator as there is in the entire league. He should be hired as a head coach in this hiring cycle. I'll be shocked and frankly appalled if he doesn't get hired by somebody because he's just that good. And going up against a rookie quarterback, I trust a veteran, really good defensive coordinator like Aaron Glenn, even with some personnel deficiencies that they've got on the back end. They're going to probably give up some points, but I think they're going to create some turnovers. I think they're going to get some key stops. That's going to make it tough for the Commanders to ultimately win this game by scoring points. Now, that is a problem because the Lions are facing off against the Commanders' defense, and when Ben Johnson looks at the Commanders' defense, he sees red meat. He sees food. He sees a delicious meal that he's about to wolf down in roughly 60 minutes of game time. I think the Lions are going to run wild on the Commanders' defense. Make no mistake about it. I think it's basically a mismatch at every single level. Offensive line versus front seven, receivers versus corners, you name it. It's a lopsided matchup for the Lions offense versus the Commanders defense. The Commanders just got to get turnovers, man. That's really the only way that they win this game, I would say. They get turnovers, and Jaden Daniels just has one of those games that he's had a couple times this year where he just plays out of his mind. I'm talking like 4 or 5 touchdowns, 350 total yards, game-winning drive in all likelihood at that point, because it'd be a shootout for sure. The Lions are going to score 30-plus in my mind. And if they don't score 30-plus, it's because they took their foot off the gas. They are a juggernaut offensively. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is in for a huge day. Seems like David Montgomery is trending towards playing this weekend. That'll be one to watch, though. I think he's still recovering from that MCL, but I think he should ultimately get back in the lineup for this one, which is huge, especially for short yardage and goal line situations. I think Sonic and Knuckles are going to run wild. I think Amon-Ra is in for a big game in this one. I think Jared Goff, this honestly might be one of those games where Jared Goff throws for like, I don't know, call it like 14 of 15 for like 100 yards, 2, maybe even 3 touchdowns if Ben Johnson's feeling like throwing him in a few, but I don't think the Lions have to do anything but run the damn ball in this game, and if the Commanders give them the opportunity, I think that's all they're going to do. I think they're just going to run it right down the Commanders' throats. I think 30 should be the baseline for them. I think they go over 30. They may even top 40 in this game. I just think it's a massive mismatch between the Lions' offense and the Commanders' defense. And that ultimately it makes me lean the Lions on the spread, even though it's a 9.5-point spread. I just think it's such a mismatch between the Lions' offense and the Commanders' defense. And Aaron Glenn versus Jaden Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury for that matchup on the other side of the ball. I don't know. I'll just put it this way. With the Lions' personnel deficiencies, I think at the very worst, Aaron Glenn's going to play him to a stalemate. They may ultimately win that too. We saw him shut down the Vikings. A little bit different situation there with Sam Darnold. I would, in a heartbeat, take Jaden Daniels over Sam Darnold. Even if you roll back the clock to year 1 of Sam Darnold, I'm still taking Jaden Daniels. I'll tell you that right now. He's already a top 10 quarterback. And now we said that about C.J. Stroud last year, but boy, Jaden Daniels just looks a little bit different. There's just a little bit more juice in that tank. So barring some magic from him, he's facing off against a really good defensive coordinator. I just don't see it happening. I still lean the Lions at the -9.5. Now, the more I think about it, the more I kind of lean the over at 55.5 because I just think the Lions are going to run wild on them, brother. But that's just too high for me to bet. That's asinine. I can't be doing that. Can't be doing that. So I'll abstain. I'll abstain from that one. But it's a pretty good lean to the Lions at -9.5. I think we might get a blowout in this one, just because. Hey, the Commanders are about to see what a real championship caliber team looks like. Not just championship contender. They're like a top 2 team in the entire league, the Detroit Lions, even with all the attrition they've had on the defensive side of the ball. Eagles might have something to say about that in the NFC Championship. Luckily for the Lions, though, Eagles got to come to Detroit. You don't have to play in front of those scumbag fans. And, yeah, good riddance with that guy who was berating the Packers fan last week who lost his job. Good riddance. Good riddance. You can call it cancel culture. Don't care. If you comport yourself like that in public, you open yourself up to the possibility of that getting back to your boss and your boss not necessarily agreeing with all the views and how you have portrayed yourself and the company in the process of those views being filmed. That just is what it is. It's part of being an adult. It's part of being an adult, and frankly, I think it's fair. So good riddance with that guy. You won't be playing in front of those scumbags, though. You'll be playing in front of your own homegrown fans who are ravenous for a championship, ravenous for any sort of success at this point. I like the Lions' chances of running the table here going into the Super Bowls, but one step at a time. In the meantime, I think they beat the Commanders, and I think they beat them comfortably. Okay, so moving on to Sunday here, we have got the Rams and the Eagles in the early slot here at 3 p.m. Weird time for a playoff game, but okay. Eagles are favored by 6. Yeah, we're jumping on it. Eagles -6. I'm getting that over at, not DraftKings, Caesars Sportsbook. So book it. It's happening. We're adding it to the card. Maybe the only thing we add to the card this weekend, but we're adding it. Eagles -6 versus the Rams, and I'll lay it out like this. The Rams do scare me. Don't get me wrong, and I may ultimately talk myself out of this pick as we go along, but let's just take it brick by brick here. So the Eagles defense, the Eagles offense versus the Rams defense here. Now, the Rams front seven has been playing very well. However, big however in this one, the Eagles are going to be the best offensive line that the Rams have faced all season, I would say. I'd say pound for pound, the Eagles are the best offensive line in football right now. They're right up there with the best of them, but it's amazing how Jeff Stoutland has just plug and play. Different guy in there, same result. We still got an elite offensive line. We can get any short yardage play that we want. All we got to do is just run it behind the offensive line. You don't have to do anything special. You just run it with Jalen Hurts, and you're going to get at least 1, 2, maybe even 3 yards on a given tush-push situation. The Rams haven't faced anything quite like that this season, and they ain't faced a guy like Saquon Barkley. I may be talking out of my ass, and I should check right now. Actually, whether they played each other this year. Give me just a second here. 2 seconds. Maybe even 3. 4 even. They did play the Eagles, and lo and behold, they lost 37-20 during the regular season. So, little illustration of that. They also lost to the Lions in Week 1 when they were at their healthiest. So, two teams that play very similar does not bode well for the Rams at this point. But hey, we'll see. This has a little bit of a team of destiny vibe for the Rams. However, Eagles offensively should be able to play their game. On the outside, hey, call it like it is. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, they're a mismatch for pretty much every defense. And then you add in Dallas Goedert, and that's a pretty hard thing to solve. Not to mention Saquon Barkley running routes out of the backfield. Not even just the check down option there, but running routes out of the backfield in addition to what he does in the running game. You got your hands full if you are the Rams defense. And I don't think the Eagles have to do anything special here versus the Rams. I think they can just run it right down their throats. I think this is a game where you could see Saquon getting north of 30 carries and ultimately getting like 150 yards, maybe like 200 yards or more, and they just ride him like a prize stallion to victory. I wouldn't be shocked at that at all because I think the Eagles can win that matchup. And if they can win that matchup running right into the teeth of that Rams defense, I think it could break their back defensively, and you could see another Eagles 37-point outing there, like you saw later in the season when they played this last time. Rams defensively, I mean, it's you got to stop the run. I mean, it's a cliche for sure, but it holds up in this one. If you stop the run and you put the game in Jalen Hurts' hands, you got a chance, if nothing else. If you don't stop the run, the Eagles are going to do whatever the fuck they want, because that's the bread and butter right there. They start with the run in Saquon Barkley, and everything else works beautifully off of that. It's a good offense that Kellen Moore has put together over the course of this season. He's acquitted himself quite well in this role as the offensive coordinator for the Eagles, as opposed to some of his previous stops. Like I'm looking at his time with the Chargers, like, ugh. Not great on that front. So the Eagles have a decided advantage on that front, so that's kind of why I lean in that direction. On the other side, though, Eagles defense is a real different proposition to what you got from the Vikings defense, especially with Cooper Kupp kind of being a diminished version of what he has been in the past. You don't want to see this Eagles secondary, man. They are young, they are nasty. The two rookies, Cooper DeJean and Quinion Mitchell, are playing out of their minds. C.J. Gardner-Johnson's playing well on the back end. White boy Reed Blankenship, always a heat-seeking missile on the back end. I hope he's still playing, and I don't sound like an absolute idiot when I say that, but hey, they've got a really good defense. That's before you even talk about the defensive line. It's not quite the vaunted pass rush that we've seen from them in previous years. Quite the opposite, actually. They've not been very impressive on that front, but the interior defensive line and the linebacking core, now they did lose Nakobe Dean for the season with a patellar tear. That could have some far-reaching ramifications. He was the quarterback of that defense. He was starting to play like the Nakobe Dean that we saw at Georgia. Tough time. Really, it's just a tough injury to get in general with tearing that patella. That's a tough one to come back from. We'll see what Nakobe Dean looks like when he comes back, but it doesn't really help him right now not having the quarterback of your defense in there in the middle. That could be a problem, especially if they're working Kyron Williams out of the backfield, or you get Tyler Higbee matched up with Nakobe Dean's backup if they decide not to put C.J. Gardner-Johnson on Tyler Higbee. These are all things that you gotta keep in mind here. You might be seeing a little bit more zone defense, at least some zones in the middle of the field, if you will, from this Eagles defense here. I don't know. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see on how they kind of adapt around not having Nakobe Dean. I trust Vic Fangio though, and I just think personnel wise, I think it might be a stalemate. Because I like the Eagles defensive line, but the Rams offensive line they're no slouches. They're a low key sort of underrated unit, getting better every week with the health improvements here. Like I said, healthy at the right time right now. I think they could battle them to a stalemate on the offensive side of the offensive line. I don't know what that translates to running game wise is the problem. And if Puka Nacua is your only true option, I don't know. I have a hard time seeing Matthew Stafford not turn the ball over on a couple occasions in that situation. He's going to make a couple incredible throws. He always does. But, man, I just I have a hard time. I have a hard time seeing that whole thing come to fruition there if they're not able to generate something on the ground. You can't be one-dimensional against this Eagles defense. They're just too good. They're just too good. And with that said, I'm even firmer on the Eagles -6 here. So yeah, we're adding it to the card. Eagles -6. I think they take care of business in this game. I don't think it's particularly close, barring some Matthew Stafford magic, which always seems to be around the corner. I think the Eagles end up winning this thing fairly comfortably. Over-under is 44. You can get anywhere from 44.5 to 43.5, actually. I think the 43.5 is only over at, give me just a second here. You can get it over at ESPN Bet and DraftKings, actually. So there's a couple places you can get it. Slightly into the over. I don't know. I don't have a good enough read on this game. Whatever style it ends up being, I just see the Eagles winning. That could be low scoring. It could be high scoring. I don't really have a good read on what that'll be. But tentative lean to the over, I suppose. But I'm staying away from it. -6. That's the real play on that one. And then, boy, oh boy, please, if there are football gods out there, I'm praying to you right now, please don't let this game be a disappointment. The Ravens are on the road at the Bills. It's either a 1-point line, 1.5-point line, depends on where you go. The Ravens are favored in this game. You may remember back in week 3, I think it was, very early in the season is the moral of the story here. The Ravens ran the Bills off the football field. Pretty embarrassing. They just rang the life out of them pretty much, and that was kind of where the Ravens got off the schneid and made themselves a run to the playoffs. That kind of got them going there with that Bills game early on in the season. Boy, oh boy, you want to talk about a heavyweight matchup here. I mean, I don't know what to make of this one. I might bet some props, but I ain't betting the line, so let's just lay it out for you here. So, Ravens defense, Bills offense. All in all, man, I mean, you look at the front seven for the Ravens versus the offensive line for the Bills. Might even give a little bit of an advantage to the Buffalo Bills, but not by much. It's almost a stalemate on that. And defensively, wide receiver-wise, I think the Ravens are going to do just fine matching up with the Bills. It's just a matter of whether Josh Allen has one of those Josh Allen games where he's just hitting every throw and running like a wild man. That's going to be where this game is most likely won or lost for the Ravens, is right there. Big shocker. If Josh Allen plays well, they win the game. And if Josh Allen doesn't play well, the Bills probably don't win this game. So guess I'm not really breaking any news there with that one. But, yeah, I mean, the Ravens defensively, they match up fairly well with the Bills offensively. I think they have enough in the secondary to where they don't have to worry about it necessarily. you worry about Khalil Shakir a little bit, but I think you lean in more towards the run, especially with Dalvin Cook having all that touchdown production this year. They lean on him heavily. He's low-key the guy that's scoring these points when they need him to score points. Had a great season this year. He's had a fantastic year running the ball for the Buffalo Bills. So I think it would behoove the Ravens to devote resources to stopping the run more so than the pass, just because I think they match up okay in the pass. Now, that calculation changes if Josh Allen comes out just like a wild man in a good way, complimentary, as opposed to wild man like, we're talking about throwing deep balls to fullbacks 40 yards down the field. Different kind of wild man. We're talking about the good kind of wild man that can win you a football game. If that doesn't happen, the Ravens should win that matchup on the defensive side of the ball. The problem is there's always the Josh Allen in the equation, which just makes this almost impossible to predict. If you use past results, Ravens should win by 1,000,000, but I don't know how applicable a Week 3 matchup is to right now here in the second week in the divisional round of the playoffs, several months down the line. Don't think it has a whole lot of bearing on it, but let's flip this around. Ravens offense versus the Bills defense. Now, the Bills defense has been playing fairly well. Don't get me wrong. The Ravens offense has a clear advantage over this Bills defense right now. I don't think. Now, we'll see on Zay Flowers. Doesn't seem like he's going to play in this one, which is huge for the Bills. I think that helps him out a lot. But you still got the MVP in Lamar Jackson. I think he's going to ultimately win the MVP this year, but it's going to be a toss-up between, interestingly enough, the two starting quarterbacks in this game, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. But man, when you have Lamar Jackson on the other side of the ball, the way that he's playing, Derrick Henry, just say your prayers, man. That's all I got for you. Say your prayers. Derrick Henry in January. It's going to be a long day for the Bills front seven. Tyler Linderbaum versus who's in there? Ed Oliver in the middle. That's going to be a heavyweight matchup right there, and the Bills are going to need Ed Oliver to have a hell of a game in the interior there and just stone Derrick Henry and stop a couple of those long runs that may have materialized otherwise. If they want to win this game and kind of slow down this Ravens offense, I think they can do it. I think they got a good defensive coach in Sean McDermott. It's going to take some scheming, though, man, because this Ravens offense has been unstoppable all year, and we saw them put on a clinic last time these two teams played. Von Miller's going to have to turn back the clock. Ed Oliver's going to have one of the games of his life. You're going to need the secondary to hold up their end of the bargain. It's going to be tough sledding for the Bills in this one defensively. And on the whole, I guess I would lean the Ravens at -1. They did beat them by a whole lot last time. And obviously, different situation here several months down the line, different teams, really, now that they've both kind of gelled into what their final form ultimately is. But yeah, I just feel like I'm not betting this game, but -1, yeah, I'll pick them. I'll pick them -1. Again, not adding that to the card. Really, it looks like we're just sticking with the Eagles -6 this week for the lone pick on the card. But give me that as far as like a pick is concerned, an unofficial pick, give me the Ravens here at -1. Over-under's 51.5. Honestly, lean the over. I think this is going to be a fun football game. I think it's going to come, I hope it's going to come right down to the wire unless one of these teams ends up blowing the other one out. But yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be high scoring if nothing else. So yeah, give me the lean on that 51.5 over-under there. And with that, what are we at, like an hour? Yeah, like just to shade it under an hour right now. It'll be a little over an hour by the time we're finished here. So with that said, thank you all so much for watching this. This has been Unqualified Analysis. If you enjoyed, go ahead, subscribe, rate, like, all that sort of stuff. Share with a friend even. Help me grow this thing. But either way, we do this thing twice a week for right now. That era is coming rapidly to a close, especially, I mean, we get to Valentine's Day, and buddy, we're back to one a week, man. Where is the time gone? Where's the football season gone? Let's just enjoy this last little bit here. Good vibes, man, good vibes. So yeah, that's twice a week. You can follow me on the socials at CalebVUA. It is right down there in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. I hope I'm pointing at the right corner. Yeah, outside of that, if you don't want to shoot me a DM on Twitter, you can shoot me an email at unqualifiedanalysis@gmail.com. Outside of that, thank you so much for tuning in to Unqualified Analysis. As always, I have got no clue what I'm talking about. I did just notice a slight imperfection on my gaudy American flag hat. And that's a bit of a problem to me, but you know what? I'm already looking at it. Why not do the little home stretch here in a little bit of America attire, I suppose. A little treat for you watching on YouTube. Howdy there, partner. Anyways, one thing that I learned this week, the Black Death only lasted 7 years. And, I just, personally, this is quite a tone shift as I don the American flag cowboy hat here that I just bought at a gas station one time. I thought it lasted for like decades. 7 years is all it took to maybe kill half the world's population. Wild stuff. Wild stuff. Thankfully, we discovered hygiene. And the rest is history from there. We've not had a Black Death since then, at least not on a mass scale, like in the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages, if you will, the 1300s. Outside of that, though, I'm gonna go edit this thing, and hey, let's shoot for dinner before 9:30, huh? That sound good? Anyways, I will talk to y'all on Tuesday to kind of recap what we just saw from the NFL and get you hyped up a little bit for college football, at least in a menial way, I suppose. And I will talk to you on Tuesday. See ya.